Hi, my name is Sonia from An Enthusiastic Reader, and I'm bringing another tag video to you. If you watched my last tag video, you will see that I'm wearing the same clothes. I look exactly the same because I just taped that probably 5 minutes ago. And are we really going to go through the pretense of changing our clothes and changing our hair and earrings so that we look like we did this on a different day? I don't think we need to be doing that anymore. Do you? This is the 10 books, the 10 years, 10 books tag. It was created by Rick MacDonnell, who's got his channel back, and I'm so happy to see him back on BookTube. Yay, hi Rick. And I wanted to do this tag. I thought it sounded like fun. And also Leo from A Little Life did also tag me serendipitously, or yeah, thanks Leo. All right, so the whole premise of this tag is that you look over the last 10 years and talk about your favorite book from each year for the last 10 years. So I was looking at my Goodreads, and I had lots of 5-star books in every year that I am doing this tag. And so I can't really say that I have a favorite of every year, but what I wanted to do is pick a book that maybe I haven't talked about that much on the channel, or maybe I don't really hear about on BookTube that much, to kind of introduce you to some new books that you may be interested in. So I've got a slight twist on it because I can't really say that I had a favorite every single year. So with that said, let's get started. The first year we'll talk about is 2010. The book I chose is Underworld by Don DeLillo. I think this might be one of the greatest American novels ever written, if not the greatest. It takes place from the 1950s to the 1990s. It encompasses 5 decades of popular culture, serial killers, fear of nuclear annihilation, art, an analysis of time, J. Edgar Hoover's life. One of the characters is a nun named Sister Edgar, so it's like a twin of J. Edgar Hoover thematically. There is so much. It's about baseball, collecting, love, art, fear, terror, terrorism, environmental demise, everything that's happening now you can see the germs of in Underworld. It's a very important to me novel, and I know so many people will never read it. It's really long. Some people consider Don DeLillo pretentious, but I find him to be such a genius, and this is a really important novel to understanding where we're at now, where we came from, and the anxiety that's all wrapped up with beauty in a package that's really long and really dense and beautiful. So if anyone ever wants to do a buddy read of this, I would read it again and read it with you if you're interested. So hit me up if that sounds fun, maybe something in June, if anybody wants to. 2011, I chose Let the Great World Spin by Colin McCann. This is also a book that encompasses a lot of ideas from the late 20th century. It's pre 9/11, but it does involve the Twin Towers, and it's multiple storylines. There's AIDS, there's all kinds of different storylines that come together in this character study and analysis of the world in the time period in which the novel is set. The writing is beautiful, some of it's funny. He is just a great stylist, and his characters feel very real, and I can't say enough about what a great novel this is. 2012, I chose So Long, See You Tomorrow by William Maxwell. It was written in 1979, so it's not a new book, or it wasn't a new book when I read it back then, but the writing is beautiful. It's the story of a boy, and it's also the story of a murder, and it's a story of a broken friendship, broken families. It is a novella, so it's very short, but the writing is beautiful, and it captures just something about loss that I still think about. So it's a book well worth picking up. Okay, 2013, I chose a book that's the first in a series by Lydia Millet called How the Dead Dream. Then the second book is called Ghost Lights, I believe, and the third book is called Magnificence. And there are characters that carry over from novel to novel, and it's a story about our relationship with animals, the natural world, each other, disability, environmentalism, ecotourism, and how terrible that is for economies that are third world, I don't mean it in a disparaging way, but third world economies. And it's the main character in this particular book kind of has a moral awakening throughout the book. He's a rich man who is figuring things out, dealing with an aging parent, finding new love, and also then has a catastrophe that makes him awaken to things that are happening in the world that he hadn't seen before. And the whole trilogy is so good, and I've never heard anyone ever talk about this trilogy before on BookTube. So if you're looking for novels about morality, but that are also really engaging, well written, the characters are interesting, and you can see a progression through the three novels, try and pick this one up. 2014, I'm choosing The Painter by Peter Heller. This is a thriller set in Colorado, New Mexico. I'm not sure if it's set in Wyoming too. So it's set in the American West. It's about a figurative painter who has some renown, and at the very beginning of the story, I think he's in Grand Junction, Colorado, and he sees two men abusing a horse. There's not a lot of animal abuse in this, but that incident sets him off and sets off the course of the novel, because he immediately tries to defend the horse, and then it sets off this whole chain of crime and also relationships, fame. It talks about fame and how can you value art? What is it all about? Romantic relationships, broken marriages, problems with a daughter. So there's so much packed in. And Peter Heller, I never hear anybody talk about Peter Heller on BookTube either, but he is such a great writer. He's Denver-based, but he wrote The Dog Stars, which is a post-apocalyptic or post-pandemic actually story set in Colorado, where he is grappling with the world in a brand new world and what happens. And that's also a thriller. There's some violence, there's a lot of tension, and there's some scary scenes, but you really grow to love the main character, and it's the same for The Painter. So Peter's written 4 novels, I think, and he's just a great talent. Okay, 2015, I'm choosing A Manual for Cleaning Women by Lucia Berlin. She's passed on, but she was a short story writer who writes about people under the radar of society, cleaning women, people who have to, are in diminished circumstances and dealing with poverty and alcoholism, broken relationships, deep sisterhood with, there's some environmentalism also in these stories. They're so well written. I defy you to pick this up and not really feel for the characters. 2016, I'm choosing Two Girls, Fat and Thin by Mary Gateskill. It starts off as kind of a satirical novel about 2 women that forge an unlikely relationship. Both of them, then you go into their pasts and you see that they have like common threads of really abusive childhoods. And anyway, they come together because one of the women is like an acolyte of Ayn Rand, and they have this like society of people who worship Ayn Rand, and the other woman's a reporter, so she comes to do a story on this society. So there's a funny aspect to it, but it's also, it's really disturbing. There's a lot of very graphic depictions of violence, sex, abuse, and this interplay between these 2 women and their fraught relationship. So It sounds really harrowing. You probably doesn't, I'm not making it sound like something you really want to pick up, but I wanted to just read to you what I wrote in my Goodreads review. This novel is wringing wet with rage and tenderness. Gateskill doesn't hold anything back about sexuality or the visceral ugliness of bodies, nor of how power is wielded against vulnerable people, and in this novel, women. It starts off with a comic sensibility, but there's so much more here than a satire of an Ayn Rand-like figure's most ardent follower. You will come to know the two main characters so well and may miss them after the final page. So, probably not a book for everyone, but a book that I really connected to for some reason. I really love the novels and essays of Mary Gateskill. She's an acquired taste. Not everyone will like her, but you might. 2017, I'm choosing The Stone Diaries by Carol Shields. This was written in 1993. It's the story of an unremarkable woman's life from conception to death. So if you don't like books about an entire life, then you might not like this, but they're great writing. It won the Pulitzer Prize. Highly recommended. 2018, I chose a more contemporary novel called How to Be Safe by Tom McAllister. This is in the aftermath of a school shooting. There is a teacher who was a woman. She was having problems in the school and she got suspended. So for a very brief time, she is considered a suspect for the school shooting. She did not do it, and she is very quickly disproven to have been the shooter, but that's the story is the aftermath of what happens when you're accused of something you didn't do. Our gun culture worship that we have in this country, how we grieve through the media, performative grieving, how a society comes together, and kind of it's not heartwarming. Like, there is nothing in this novel that makes you feel good about where our society is right now, or was like 2 years ago. It's kind of hard to separate that story from pandemic life right now. But we don't really know how this is going to play out. We don't know how our society will be changed afterward, but we do know that gun violence, school shootings, and just mass violence that's just accepted by us because it's the norm has changed us. And so this novel is about that, and it would be a good book club book because there's a lot of issues to talk about. All right, and last book for 2019, I'm choosing Mad Boy, An Account of Henry Phipps in the War of 1812 by Nick Arvin. This book is historical fiction set in around the time of the War of 1812. It's about a young boy whose mother is killed in front of him, and he hears her voice say she wants to be buried at sea, and it's a comic novel, so this sounds really tragic. There are elements of tragedy in the book and of wistfulness, loneliness, mental illness perhaps, but we don't know. And then just a whole variety of colorful characters that propel the story as Henry tries to figure out how to get his mother's body to the sea, also dodging the war and trying to find his brother and sister and his father, and while hearing his mother's voice. And it's wonderful. It's a comic novel. It was published by Europa Editions, and if you like Europa books, this fits right into that realm. So there you go. That's what I wanted to tell you about my favorite books from the last 10 years. Please leave me comments down below if you've read any of these, if you'd like to read any of them. And thank you so much for writing the tag, Rick, and I will talk to you later. Bye.